Let us all chant the Mangala Charan together. Om Jnanatimirandhasya Jnananjanashakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamahyam Dadati Swapadantikam. Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yutapadakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhanvitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Deenabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namastute Tapta Kantana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vancha kalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhubhayeva cha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namah. Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Mukam karoti namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Presthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Nitinamine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschate Deshatarini Mukam karoti vachalam pangum langayate girim yat kripatamaham vande Shri Guru Deenatarinam Paramananda Madhavam Shri Chaitanya Ishwaram. Jaya Jaya Shri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Jaya Jaya Shri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Jaya Jaya Shri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. All glories to Lord Chaitanya, all glories to Lord Nityananda, all glories to Advaita Chandra, and all glories to all the devotees of Lord Chaitanya. So here we begin yet another sweet nectarian session from Chaitanya Charitamrta, seeking the blessings of Lord Chaitanya Mahāprabhu, Krishna Das, Kaviraj, Goswami Maharaj, Srila Prabhupada, and all the Vaishnavas. So we were in this chapter, MadhyaLila chapter 4, Sri Madhavendra Puri's devotional service, and we were discussing about Lord praises Lord Madhavendra Puri's devotion. So we would be in that section, and here we begin. Parama virakta mauni sarvatro dasina gramya varta bhaye dviti asangyahina.
Chaitanya Mahaprabhu continued. Sri Madhavendra Puri used to remain alone. He was completely renounced and always very silent. He was uninterested in everything material, and for fear of talking about mundane things, he always lived without a companion. So here, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is explaining about the lifestyle of Sri Madhavendra Puri. So what he is saying? That he used to remain alone. Parama virakta mauni sarvatra udasi. So Madhavendra Puri would always remain alone. He was completely renounced, parama virakta, always very silent, mauni. He was uninterested in everything material, udasi. So he was not interested in any material thing. Grame varta bhai. So he would not really connect with common people Why? Because common people will talk about common subject matters, about material subjects, and therefore he was not interested in discussing anything of this material world. So, for fear of talking about mundane things, he lived always in seclusion. He lived without a companion. So that he was at such an exalted spiritual platform that these all attributes would naturally manifest. So this was his natural lifestyle of choice. He was not being forced to live such a lifestyle. This was by choice he was living this.
Hena jana gopalera agyamrutapana sahasra koshasi bhule chandana magina. After receiving the transcendental orders of Gopal, this great personality traveled thousands of miles just to collect sandalwood by begging. So here we see the absolute surrender of Madhavendra Puri, that whatever order was given, Agyamrit, so he received that order as nectar and he would do anything to fulfill that order. So without considering that how inconvenient it would be to travel all the way and how he would be bringing back so much of chandan and how would he acquire, who would give him the chandan. All those thoughts did not cross him. The only focus of him when he gets this instruction, the only focus was I must leave and I must get the chandan. So that is how he received this order and he just started executing it.
And no bus, no truck, no train. So all this travel would happen actually by foot or some bullock carts possibly.
भूखे रहे तब अन्ना मांगे ना खाया हे न जन चंदन भारा वही लाना आया.
Although Madhavendra Puri was hungry, he would not beg food to eat. This renowned person carried a load of sandalwood for the sake of Sri Gopal. So Madhavendra Puri, even if he would feel hunger, bhoke rahe, even if he was hungry, he would not beg for food. So the only interest he had was to carry this load of sandalwood for the Supreme Lord. So this is a very fortunate situation. Lord had personally appeared to him in his dream and asked. So he had made a personal request. So Madhavendra Puri was always in bliss that I have received this wonderful order from the Lord, and that itself and executing that order gave him so much of happiness, internal bliss, that all these things did not really matter to him.
Maneka chandana tola visheka karpura Gopale paraiba ananda prachura. Without considering his personal comfort, Madhavendra Puri carried one mount, about 82 pounds of sandalwood and 20 tolas, about 8 ounces of camphor to smear over the body of Gopal. This transcendental pleasure was sufficient for him. So while he was going, he did not think that he would get a servant to carry things along with him. So he was fully prepared that he would somehow walk and bring back so much of sandalwood and chandan. So no personal discomfort, just one focus in life. How can I serve Krishna? Utkale radani rakhe chandana dekhina taha edaila raja patra dekhana.
Since there were restrictions against taking the sandalwood out of the Orissa province, the toll officials confiscated the stock. But Madhavendra Puri showed him the release papers given by the government and consequently escaped difficulties. So this was hundreds of years back, many centuries back actually. This whole pastime is being narrated by Lord Chaitanya. From our time, many centuries back. So even at that time, sandalwood was rare, sandalwood was precious, and one cannot take it out of Orissa province. So of course, when the officials, toll officials saw that so much of sandalwood is being carried, so they confiscated the stock. But Madhavendra Puri had the government Rajapatra. He had the Rajapatra, which helped him secure this stock again.
Mlecha desha dura patha jagati apara ke mate chandana niba nahi vichara. Madhavendra Puri was not at all anxious during the long journey to Vrindavan through the provinces governed by the Muslims and filled with unlimited numbers of watchmen. So not only he was very, very sincere and dedicated, he was actually fearless also. And that symptom, that fearlessness comes when we take the shelter of the Supreme Lord. So like we know, Srila Prabhupada, his full name was Abhay Charan. So one becomes Abhay when he takes the Charan or when he attains the shelter of the lotus feet of the Supreme Lord. So we see that this quality is there in all the devotees of the Supreme Lord, that they are fearless. Sange ek vata nahi ghati dana dite tathapi utsah bada chandan la nayaite.
Although Madhavendra Puri did not have a farthing with him, he was not afraid to pass by the toll officers. His only enjoyment was in carrying the load of sandalwood to Vrindavan for Gopal. So practically he had no resources. He went without a penny in his pocket. Then by Lord's arrangement, he received the sandalwood from the king of Orissa, and he is bringing back, and still he has not a farthing in his pocket. So we can just imagine that how completely he was dependent on the Supreme Lord and nobody else. So he had no money to give to toll officers, and still he was not afraid of what will happen if they'll catch me. How will I do this? How will I do that? He was just blissful carrying the load of sandalwood to Vrindavan. So that's how we see so Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, Sar dharman parityajya mam ekam sharanam vraja aham tvam sarva papebhyo mokshayishami ma shuchaha. So therefore Krishna is saying, if you surrender to me, do not worry, do not have any fear. I'll protect you from all your sinful reactions. So when devotees surrender to the Lord, Lord makes all arrangements.
Pragadha premera swabhava achara nija dukha vigna dira na kare vichara. This is the natural result of intense love of Godhead. The devotee does not consider personal inconveniences or impediments. In all circumstances, he wants to serve the Supreme Personality of Godhead.
Pragad prem. Like an ocean. Eitara gada prema loke dekhaite Gopal tandre agyadi la chandan anite.
Shri Gopal wanted to show how intensely Madhavendra Puri loved Krishna. Therefore, he asked him to go to Nilachal to fetch sandalwood and camphor. So, Gopal wanted to show or bring forward to the whole world about the degree of surrender and love what Madhavendra Puri was exhibiting, and that is why he specifically chose Madhavendra Puri and asked him to do this.
Such a difficult task otherwise. So this is another thing we need to understand, that sometimes the devotee of an exalted devotee of the Lord has a very challenging task or has a very big challenge in front of him. So by that, the glories of the devotee becomes known to us. If this order would not have been given by Gopal, then how that Kheer Chor pastime would have happened, or how the complete surrender of Madhavendra Puri would have been known to us. Because of this order, all these qualities of Madhavendra Puri we are able to hear and practically witness.
Bahu parishrame chandan remuna anila ananda badila mane dukh na gadila. With great trouble and after much labor, Madhavendra Puri brought the load of sandalwood to Remuna. However, he was still very pleased. He discounted all the difficulties.
So it is not that there were no difficulties. There was great trouble and much labor was involved, but he did not, he was still so much blissful and happy. He was still so pleased that he discounted all difficulties.
Pariksha karite Gopal kaila agya dana Pariksha kariya sheshe hoila dayavana.
To test the intense love of Madhavendra Puri, Gopal, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, ordered him to bring sandalwood from Nilachal. And when Madhavendra Puri passed this examination, the Lord became very merciful to him. So this point we have been discussing, that this whole pastime is the divine test to test the intense love of this great personality. And that is why Gopal gave him such an order.
Actually, this verse is reminding me like all the teachers, they set the question paper and the question paper may have very difficult questions. But then the teacher, it is such a joy for the teacher when the students pass, when the student gets distinction, when the student gets sent up, and the teacher feels so happy about it, though she has said or he has said the paper, and yet seeing the student passing the exams. So here Gopal had arranged this divine test for Madhavendra Puri, and he was so pleased that Madhavendra Puri passed this examination. Hey Bhakti Bhakta Priya Krishna Vyavahara Bujite Uama Sabar Nahi Adhikara. Such behavior exhibited in loving service between the devotee and the devotee's lovable object Sri Krishna is transcendental. It is not possible for a common man to understand. Common men do not even have the capacity. So we common people, what happens is if we see somebody else suffering and we start asking questions, hey, he or she is such a big devotee. You say that this person is a devotee, that person chants 16 rounds also, then why so many problems are happening to him? Why he is facing so much of difficulty? So the point is that the person who is facing is actually not feeling so much of difficulty. But then the common men, they do not understand that all this, what is happening in a devotee's life is actually perfect arrangement of the Lord for the devotee's purification and for the devotees bringing out the glories of the devotees and to ensure that the devotee reaches back home, back to Godhead in this life itself.
Yeah, because somebody could have questioned why Gopal gave such a difficult task, thousands of kilometers, no penny in hand. So it looks like a difficult thing for a common man to see.
Ita boli pade prabhu tanra krita shloka ye shloka chandre jagat karaya chaloka.
After saying this, Lord Caitanya Mahāprabhu read the famous verse of Madhavendra Puri. That verse is just like the moon. It has spread illumination all over the world. So Mahaprabhu is further continuing to enumerate the glories of Madhavendra Puri and reading a famous verse of Madhavendra Puri. So that's what Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is going to do. This verse is like a moon which has spread the illumination all over this world.
Ghasite ghasite yaiche malaya jasara gandha bade taiche ei shlokera vichara. Continuous rubbing increases the aroma of Malaya sandalwood. Similarly, consideration of this verse increases one's understanding of its importance. So Mahaprabhu is glorifying this verse and comparing it to the chandan. So the more we rub the chandan, the more its aroma spreads. So similarly, the more one meditates on this verse and it increases the understanding and importance. Ratnagana madhye yaiche kaustubha mani rasa kavya madhye taiche e shloka gani.
As the Kaustuba Mani is considered the most precious of valuable stones, this verse is similarly considered the best of poems dealing with the mellows of devotional service. So there are many valuable stones. There are diamonds and there are rubies and there are sapphires. And among all these valuable stones, Kaustuba is considered to be the most precious. Similarly, there are many verses and poems describing the different mellows, the rasa of a relationship with Krishna or devotional service. This is the best. This verse, which is going to be revealed by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu of Madhavendra Puri, is the best.
Ei shloka kahi ache Radha Thakurani Tandra Kripa Spuriyache Madhavendra Vani. Actually, this verse was spoken by Srimati Radharani herself, and by her mercy only was it manifest in the words of Madhavendra Puri. So Madhavendra Puri could understand the mood of Srimati Radharani, and that is how he gets this verse, or this verse manifests to Madhavendra Puri. Ki Bagaur Chandra iha kore swadana, iha swadite ara nahi chautha jana.
Only Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has tasted the poetry of this verse. No fourth man is capable of understanding it. So this verse is of Srimati Radharani. It manifested in Madhavendra Puri because of his exalted devotion. And now Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is tasting this poetry of this verse. Of course, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is Krishna himself. And here Krishnadas Kaviraj is saying that apart from these three personalities, there is no fourth person who can understand it.
Sheshakale e shloka pathite pathite siddhi prapti haila puri shlokera sahite. Madhavendra Puri recited this verse again and again at the end of his material existence. Thus, uttering this verse, he attained the ultimate goal of life. Ai dina dayardanath he Mathura nath kadavalokya se hridayam tvad aloka kataram dayita brahmyati kim karomyaham.
So here this is the verse which we have been anxiously waiting. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu spoke so many verses, building the, revealing this verse at the crescendo. Ai Dina Dayadra Nath He. O my Lord, O most merciful Master, O Master of Mathura, Mathura Nath. When shall I see you again? Because of my not seeing you, my agitated heart has become unsteady. Hridayam tvad alokam kataram. O most beloved one, what shall I do now? So here, this is the mood of Srimati Radharani. Krishna has gone to Mathura and she's spending not day after day, not hour after hour, but moment to moment, she is feeling separation from Lord Krishna. She's just speaking out, when shall I see you again? When will that day come? And I'm not able to see you, so my heart is so agitated and so unsteady. So what should I do at this? And now what should I do?
Shloka padite Prabhu haila murchite premete vivashahana padila bhumite. When Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu recited this verse, he immediately fell to the ground unconscious. He was overwhelmed and had no control over himself. So this verse churned such transcendental emotions of separation within Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's heart that when he read this verse or when he heard this verse, he actually immediately fell unconscious. Aste vyaste kole kari nila nityananda krandana kariya tabe uthe gaura chandra.
When Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu fell to the ground in ecstatic love, Lord Nityananda quickly took him on his lap. Crying, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu then got up again. So this verse depicts that intense feeling of separation that Srimati Radharani is experiencing in absence of Krishna. In fact, it is considered to be the most intense feeling of love which one can have. And that same feeling now, after reciting this verse, Madhavendra Puri was experiencing, and now Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is experiencing that intense feeling of separation from Krishna.
Premonmad haila uthi ti uti dhaya hunkara karaye hase kande nache gaya. Exhibiting ecstatic emotions, the Lord began to run here and there, making resounding noises. Sometimes he laughed, and sometimes he cried, and sometimes he danced and sang. Ai dina, bole bar bar, kanthe na neha sare vani, netra ashrudhara.
Chaitanya Mahaprabhu could not recite the whole verse. He simply said, Ai Dina, repeatedly. Thus he could not speak, and profuse tears were in his eyes. So he could not even recite the whole verse, just the initial two words he said, Ai Dina. And he was. These are all the description of the ecstatic symptoms manifested by the Lord.
Kampasveda pulakashu stamba vaivanaya nirveda vishada jadya garva harsha dainya. Trembling, perspiration, jubilant tears, shock, fading of the bodily luster, disappointment, moroseness, loss of memory, pride, joy, and humility were all visible in Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's body. So actually, opposite emotions were also simultaneously present in his body because he was experiencing all the ecstatic symptoms at one time.
That in the body we can understand trembling, perspiration, tears, fading of bodily luster. But how do we see joy and humility? Humility also visible in Lord's body.
श्लोके उघाडीला प्रेम कपाटा गोपीनाथ सेवक देखे प्रभुर प्रेम नाटा. This verse uncovered the door of ecstatic love, and it was exhibited. All the servants of Gopinath saw Chaitanya Mahaprabhu dance in ecstasy. So if we remember, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was there in Remuna in that particular place, and he was discussing this pastime. And so when the pastime had come towards the last pastime of Madhavendra Puri, and he picked up that verse, he mentioned that verse, and that is how he goes into this ecstasy. Moving to the last section of this chapter, Lord Chaitanya departs for Puri. Lokera sanghata dekhi prabhur baya aila, Thakurera bhoga sari arati bajila.
When many people crowded around Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he regained his external senses. In the meantime, the offering to the deity had been finished, and there was a resounding arti performance. So as you would, if you come to ISKCON temple, also you'll notice that there is a bhoga time, and that time, devotees are very eagerly waiting, and then the conch blows, and then there is an ecstatic arti. There's ecstatic kirtan and arti happens. So here also the Gopinath ji had been offered bhoga by the servants of the Lord, and now the arti had started.
Thakure shayan karana pujari haila bahira Prabhu rage ani dila prasad barashida. When the deities were laid down to rest, the priest came out of the temple and offered all 12 pots of sweet rice to Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So we are still in Khirchor Gopinath temple. So Pujari had come and he gave 12 pots of sweet rice to the Supreme Lord. Shira dekhi Mahaprabhu Rananda Padila Bhakta Gane Khayo Yaite Panchakshira Laila.
When all the pots of sweet rice remnants left by Gopinath were placed before Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he became very pleased. In order to feed the devotees, he accepted 5 of them. So out of all the pots that were brought by the pujaris, he kept 5 pots with him to be fed to his associates.
Satakshira pujari ke bahudiya dila Panchakshira panchajane vantiya khaila. The 7 remaining pots were pushed forward and delivered to the priest. Then the 5 pots of sweet rice the Lord had accepted were distributed among the 5 devotees, and they ate the prasadam. So he returned the 7 and 5 they all honored. Gopinath Rupe Yadi Karyache Bhojana Bhakti Dekhaite Kaila Prasada Bhakshana.
Being identical with the Gopinath deity, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu had already tasted and eaten the pots of sweet rice. Yet, just to manifest devotional service, he again ate the pots of sweet rice as a devotee. So we understand that Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is Krishna himself, and therefore the Gopinath deity was non-different from Krishna, from Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And when all that sweet rice was offered to Gopinath deity, actually Chaitanya Mahaprabhu had already tasted that sweet rice. But because Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is in the mood of his devotee, so he again accepted his own Mahaprasad and he tasted it as a devotee.
Nama Sankirtane se Ratri Gunaila Mangalarti Dekhi Prabhate Chalila. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu passed that night at the temple, engaged in congregational chanting. In the morning, after seeing the Mangalarti performance, he departed. So the whole night he was there chanting, and now in the morning he leaves. Gopal Gopinath Puri Gosai Raguna Bhakta Sange Shri Mukhe Prabhu Kaila Aswadana.
In this way, Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu personally tasted his own mouth, with his own mouth, the transcendental qualities of Gopalji, Gopinath, and Sri Madhavendra Puri. So we see that in this whole pastime which Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was narrating to his associates, he tasted the wonderful qualities and pastimes of Gopalji from Giriraj Govardhan, Gopinathji in Remuna, and their servant Sri Madhavendra Puri.
Eta Akhyane Kahila Dohar Mahima Prabhur Bhakta Vatsalyara Bhakta Prema Sima. Thus, I have described both the transcendental glories of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's affection for his devotees and the highest limit of ecstatic love of God. Shraddha Yukta Na Ihar Shunye Jana Shri Krishna Charane Se Paya Premadhana.
One who hears this narration with faith and devotion attains the treasure of love of God and the Godhead at the lotus feet of Sri Krishna. So this is the Falastuti, or the verse which tells us the result of listening to these verses, hearing these verses, reciting these verses with faith. What happens? With faith and devotion, we receive the transcendental treasure of love of Godhead at the feet of the Lord.
Shri Rupa Raghunatha Padayara Asha Chaitanya Charitamrta Kahe Krishna Dasa. Praying at the lotus feet of Shri Rupa and Shri Raghunath, always desiring their mercy, I, Krishna Das, narrate Shri Chaitanya Charitamrita, following in their footsteps. So with this we complete this chapter number 4, and now we will begin yet another very, very interesting chapter, chapter number 5, where we will discuss about the pastimes of yet another wonderful devotee and the Supreme Lord, and how he actually becomes the witness or the Sākṣi for his devotee. So the deity becomes the Sākṣi. So we are going to discuss the pastimes of Sākṣi-gopāla in the 5th chapter. Just a moment, we are opening the slide. And in between, those of you who have in today's chapter, we would be starting with first section, Lord Chaitanya's arrival at Kattak, and then we would also discuss portion of the pastimes of Sākṣi-gopāla. So I hope that the screen is visible to all of us. getting into shloka number 1 to 9, Lord Chaitanya's arrival at Kattak. Padbhayam chalanyah pratima swarupo brahmanya devo hi shaktah gamyam desham yayau viprakrite bhuteham tam Sākṣi-gopāla maham natosmi.
I offer my respectful obeisances unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Brahmani Deva, who appeared as Sākṣi-gopāla to benefit a Brahmana. For 100 days, he traveled through the country walking on his own legs. Thus, his activities are wonderful. So here, Krishnadas Kaviraj, he is offering his respectful obeisances unto that Supreme Lord who is merciful, who appeared as Sākṣi-gopāla, merciful to a Brahmana. And what was the mercy? For 100 days, this deity traveled from the temple in Vrindavan on his own two legs all the way to the Brahmana's village. So this is
Far out.
astonishing, and this is one of its kind of pastime.
So actually it is very interesting that of late we are spending time in the chapters where we are discussing the glories of the deities, that how deities are reciprocating, how deities are there are very strikingly clear reciprocation, like we saw with Madhavendra Puri. He comes in dreams, not once, not twice, but thrice, and giving different instructions and accepting whatever he has to offer. And then we also discuss two separate deities, Gopalji and Gopinathji. And now here in this chapter, we will be talking about the third deity, Sākṣi-gopāla. So I'm sure when we hear so much about deities and how they reciprocate with the devotee, our desire intensify to worship Krishna at home. So thinking about that, we have been working on a very special course we have personally curated for all of you. This course, the title is Worship at Home. And this is our first digital course. So it is unlike our online sessions. It is actually a digital course which would go at self-pace, which has so many video tutorials, which has certain downloadable material where we have inbuilt certain interactive activities so that you explore and you learn. So for this particular course, actually we acquired some licenses for certain softwares, and we did so much of learning ourselves as how to do, and then we have built up, and we are very happy that this course is ready for offering, and this is the first audience where we are making that announcement. So StudyGita.com/WAH, worship at home. So WAH, it is ready. After this class, we would request you to go to this course and explore this course, know more about this course, and no more boring classes. It's all about learning at your own. So we are very happy to present this worship at home when we are starting this chapter of Sākṣi-gopāla. Jaya Jaya Shri Chaitanya Jaya Nanda Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Chalite chalite aila Yajapura Grama Varaha Thakura Dekhi Korila Pranama.
Walking, Sri Chaitanya Mahāprabhu and his party finally arrived at Yajpur on the river Vaitarni. There he saw the temple of Varahadev and offered his obeisances unto him.
Nritya Gita Kaila Preme Bahuta Stavana Yajapur Se Ratari Karila Yapana. In the temple of Varahadev, Sri Chaitanya Mahāprabhu engaged in chanting and dancing and offered prayers. He passed that night in the temple. Katake aila Sākṣi-gopāla dekhite Gopala saundarya dekhi hoila anandite.
Afterwards, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu went to the town of Cuttack to see the temple of the witness Gopal, Sākṣi-gopāla. When he saw the deity of Gopal, he was very much pleased by his beauty. So Lord first went to Yajpur, had darshan of Varahadev, then he came to Cuttack, and here he visited the temple of Sākṣi-gopāla, the deity who was a witness.
प्रेमावेश नृत्य गीत कैल कटक्षण आविष्ट हना कैला गोपाल स्तवन. While there, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu engaged in chanting and dancing for some time, and being overwhelmed, he offered many prayers to Gopal. So this is again another amazing, beautiful temple. And whenever we go to Jagannath Puri, generally we go either when we go by train or we go by flight. So generally we reach Bhubaneswar. So when we are going from Bhubaneswar to Jagannath Puri, this temple is on the way. It is, I think, around 10-12 kilometers before Jagannath Puri, 14 kilometers before Jagannath Puri. A very beautiful temple with a very, very wonderful and astounding pastime which happened there. And when you go this time, you please remember that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu personally actually danced there and chanted there, and he offered so many prayers to that Gopal.
Yeah, but this temple that we visited manifested later. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu had darshan of this deity in Cuttack. We will
When
also
the
look at
deities
that.
were
Yeah,
shifted,
then later
yes.
shifted.
से रात्रि ताहार ही भक्त गण संगे गोपालेर पूर्व कथा शुने बहुरंगे.
That night, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu stayed in the temple of Gopal, and along with all the devotees, he heard the narration of the witness Gopal with great pleasure. So that night, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, along with all his associates, they stayed back in temple of Gopal and they heard the lila of this deity.
नित्यानंद गोसाइयो बे तीर्थ ब्रह्मलीला साक्षी गोपाल देखी बारे कटक आइला. Previously, when Nityanand Prabhu had toured all over India to see different places of pilgrimage, he also had come to see Sākṣi-gopāla at Cuttack. So we have discussed that pastime, that how Nityanand Prabhu, when he was a small boy around 11-12 years old, and that time a Pandit, a Brahman, visits his place and he requests his parents, Hadai Pandit, to give Chaitanya Mahaprabhu or to send Chaitanya Mahaprabhu with him as his assistant, and how Hadai Pandit's heart broke and he was in such a difficult situation because he was parting from Nityanand Prabhu, but yet because he had given his words and Brahmana was asking for charity, so he sends Nityanand Prabhu. So at that time, Nityanand Prabhu had actually visited so many places, different places of pilgrim. So it's mentioned that he had come to Sākṣi-gopāla at Cuttack also. Sākṣi-gopālera katha shuni loka mukhe Sei katha kahe Prabhu shune mahasukhe.
At that time, Nityanand Prabhu had heard the story of Sākṣi-gopāla from the townspeople. He now recited this again, and Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu heard the narration with great pleasure. So this is this is all where deity has been traveling, this Gopal deity. So Gopal deity, we see at the bottom of the slide, the deity was in Vrindavan in North India, and on the request of a particular Brahmana, the deity agreed to walk on foot, and that's how the deity traveled to Vidyanagar in South India. And later this deity was shifted from Vidyanagar to Cuttack. This Cuttack is the place where Nityanand Prabhu came and had darshan of Sākṣi-gopāla. And then later Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, now we see in this particular pastime Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Nityanand Prabhu and all the associates, and they had darshan of Sākṣi-gopāla in Cuttack. Later, this deity was shifted to Jagannath temple at Puri. When Gopalji, Sākṣi-gopāla had shifted to Jagannath temple, some quarrel of love, Prem Kalaha, a quarrel of love happened between Sākṣi-gopāla and Jagannath. So there's some transcendental fight which happened between them. And then the king of Orissa, he decided that he will create he will build a separate village and a separate temple for Sākṣi-Gopāla. So that is how a few kilometers away from Jagannath Puri, he constructed a whole village called Satyavadi, and he constructed a nice temple, and that is where finally Sākṣi-Gopāla deity had been shifted. So this particular place is currently the deity is there. So if we get down, if we're coming from South India, we can get down at Khurda Road, and from Khurda Road railway station to Jagannath Puri, in between this train station would come Sākṣi-Gopāla station. So the station name itself is Sākṣi-Gopāla, the village name is Satyavadi, and that is where the temple is.
So let's hear the pastime of this most amazing Sākṣi-Gopāla, and how did he come to witness and for what? Purve Vidyanagare Duita Brahmana Tirtha Kari Bare Duhe Kari Lagamana. Formerly at Vidyanagar in South India, there were two Brahmanas who made a long tour to see different places of pilgrimage. Gaya Varanasi Prayag Sakala Kariya Mathura te aila duhe Anandita hana.
First of all, they visited Gaya, then Kashi, then Prayag. Finally, with great pleasure, they came to Mathura.
Vanayatraya Vana Dekhi Dekhe Govardhana Dvadashvana Dekhi Sheshe Gela Vrindavana. After reaching Mathura, they started visiting the different forests of Vrindavan and came to Govardhan Hill. They visited all 12 forests or vans and at last came to the town of Vrindavan. So this Vrindavan, its name is Van, Vrindavan. So there are actually 12 Van or 12 forest area. And every year during this Kartik month or the Damodar month, what we celebrate, so there is a parikrama which is conducted or organized by ISKCON and various other devotees also they organize. So they do the parikrama or the circumambulation of all these 12 forests. So these 12 forests actually are divided into two sections. So there are 5 forests which are located on the eastern side of Yamuna, which is like Bhadravan, Bilvavan, Lohavan, Bhandirvan and Mahavan. So these 5 forests are located on the eastern side of Yamuna. Then there are 7 forests on the western side of Yamuna. So there we have Madhuvan, Talavan, Kumudavan, Bahulavan, Kamyavan, Khadirvan and Vrindavan. So all these together, it comprises of 84 kos. So when they do Braj Parikrama, Braj Mandal, so that actually together it is around 12 forests and it takes 1 month to do the Parikrama. So there they have visited, so these two Brahmanas, they actually visited all the 12 forests and last they came to Vrindavan.
So this Vrindavan actually extends from the town Vrindavan. The whole Vrindavan, when we say Vrindavan, it is not just the town Vrindavan, because currently if you go, it is just a town Vrindavan. But it extends from town Vrindavan and it goes all the way to Nandagram and Varshana. So that entire area is called Vrindavan.
Vrindavane Govind Sthane Mahadevalaya Se Mandire Gopalera Mahasevahaya.
In the village of Panchakroshi Vrindavan, at the site where the Govinda temple is now situated, there was a great temple where gorgeous worship of Gopal was performed. So currently if we go, there is a Govinda, once a very gorgeous temple, but now still that temple is there, Govind Dev temple. And so at that time, during the visit of these Brahmanas, there was a very gorgeous temple and a very gorgeous worship of Gopal was happening there.
Keshitirtha Kaliya Dati Kailasana Shri Gopala Dekhita Karila Vishrama. After taking baths at different bathing places along the river Yamuna, such as Kesi Ghat, Kaliya Ghat, the pilgrims visited the temple of Gopal. Afterwards, they took rest in that temple. So most likely these devotees, these two brahmanas, they also followed the same route. So they were walking along with Yamuna and different ghats. They took bath and then they finally arrived at this Gopal temple. Gopala Saundarya Duhar Mana Nila Hari Sukha Pana Rahe Taha Dina Doi Chari.
The beauty of the Gopal deity stole away their minds, and feeling great happiness, they remained there for 2 or 4 days. So this deity, which they witnessed many hundreds of years back, same deity we have an opportunity of visiting and having darshan, as we discussed at Sākṣi-gopāla station. And this deity was so beautiful. Actually, this deity is very beautiful. Probably next time we should put a picture of the deity. Yeah, very tall deity and very charming smile. And now I think they don't allow, but earlier we could actually go very close to the deity and touch the lotus feet of the deities also. So this deity was so beautiful that it stole the minds of these pilgrims. And they felt so happy that they continued to stay in that same temple for 2 or 4 days.
Dui vipra madhye eka vripa vriddha praya Ara vipra yuva tanra karena sahaya. One of the two brahmanas was an old man and the other was young. The young man was assisting the old one. So there were these two brahmanas and the younger one was actually serving this old brahmana very nicely. He was assisting him. Chota vipra kare sada tahara sevana tahara sevaya vipre tushta hoila mana.
Indeed, the young brahmana always rendered service to the older one, and the old man, being very satisfied with his service, was pleased with him. So this young brahmana was rendering all kinds of menial service to this elder devotee, this elder brahmana, and this old person was very satisfied with his service and was very pleased with him.
Viprabale tumi mora bahu seva kaila sahaya hana more tirtha karaila. The older man told the younger, "You have rendered various types of service to me. You have assisted me in traveling to all these places of pilgrimage." So he was very grateful at heart that how this younger brahmana has actually assisted him a lot. Putreo pitara aiche na kare sevana tomara prasade ami na paila mashrama.
Even my own son does not render such service. By your mercy, I did not become fatigued while on this tour. Now imagine these brahmanas, they traveled from Gaya, Kashi, Mathura. Now they were in Vrindavan. They very extensive tour, and they were all traveling on foot. Very extensive tour. And despite his advanced age, this brahmana did not feel tired on this tour. So it was phenomenal actually. And therefore he was saying that even my own son would not actually do so much, would really not serve me as much as you do.
Kritaghanata hai tomaye na kaile sammana ateva tomaya ami deva kanyadana. If I did not show you any respect, I would be ungrateful. Therefore, I promise to give you my daughter in charity. So here the older brahmana, because he was so grateful and because he also observed that how wonderful and humble and simple this young brahman was. So he decided that this boy is a very good match for my daughter, and therefore he's saying that because you have served me so well, because you have been taking care of me more than my son would do, so then it would be not proper if I do not reciprocate. So as a reciprocation, I would marry my daughter to you. Chota vipra kahe shuna vipra mahashaya asambhava kaha kene ye nahi hoya.
Now we saw the gratefulness and the greatness of the elder brahmana, and now we are going to witness the greatness and the exalted character of this younger Brahmana. So what, see, imagine this elder Brahmana is saying, you are the right candidate for my daughter. And what is this younger Brahmana saying? He's saying, my dear sir, please hear me. You are saying something very unusual. Asambhav, kaha kene. You are saying something very unusual, something unprecedented. Such a thing never happens. And let's see why he's saying this.
Mahakulina tumi vidya dhanadi pravina ami akulina aradhana vidyahina. You are what all you are? Mahakulin, which means that you are the most aristocratic family man. Vidya dhan adi praveen. So you are very well educated and you are very rich. And then he's talking about himself, Ami Akulina, which means my family is not at all aristocratic, Ardhana Vidyahina, and I am without a decent education and I have no wealth. So this younger Brahman is telling that how the other one is so aristocratic, well educated, rich and everything, and he was saying that I am a very simple person, I am not even well educated, I don't have even any wealth also.
So here Srila Prabhupada notes that all these attributes of being born in an aristocratic family, being well educated, having wealth and beauty are actually result of performing pious activities in the previous lifetimes.
Kanyadana patra ami nahi tomara, Krishna priti kori tomar seva vyavahara.
Sir, I am not a suitable bridegroom for your daughter. I render service to you only for the satisfaction of Krishna. So, can we just imagine this younger Brahmana knew this Brahmana and his family, they were rich and they had all the material facilities, aristocratic family, and actually any person thinking that such a daughter of such a family would come and become my wife, he would actually be very excited and happy. But here, he's saying, no, I'm not a match for your family. I'm not a match with all these attributes. I'm not a suitable bridegroom for your daughter. And then he also gives a reason. See, I am serving you, not expecting anything in return from you. I am doing this. You are a devotee of the Lord. And Krishna is very pleased when we serve Krishna's devotees. So I am rendering service to you only for the satisfaction of Krishna. I have no other reason, no other agenda in serving you.
Brahmana sevaya Krishnir priti badhaya, tahara santoshe bhakti sampada badaya. Lord Krishna is very much pleased by service rendered to Brahmanas, and when the Lord is pleased, the opulence of one's devotional service increases. So now here the younger Brahman is giving the reason that why he was serving him. He was serving him as a service to the Supreme Lord because that would be very, very pleasing to the Supreme Lord himself. And he's saying that when that happens, that one's bhakti sampad badaya. So it is not the mundane material wealth increases, but what increases when we serve the devotee of the Lord, that increases the opulence of one's devotional service. So saying this, actually the younger Brahman is actually refusing the proposal of older Brahman. And in the next session, we will see what happens next and how Sākṣi-gopāla comes into the picture.
Hare
Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So thank you all for joining us. We love to read your comments, your learnings, what fascinated you or what inspired you or what enlightenment did you take from today's session. We'll be happy to read your learnings, so do share with us. And yes, now it is a time you can visit StudyGita.com/WAH, where you would find a very uniquely curated course about worshipping Krishna at home. There we have some very fine videos also of demonstration, like how do we hold the aarti, how many times we show what paraphernalia, how to offer bhoga, what mantras to recite while offering bhoga, how to do achman. So all those things are there so that you become a wonderful devotee of Krishna. So we'll take your leave, check out the course and share with us how do you find it. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.